everyone, I hope you enjoyed class today. We are going to debrief the exercise, where do I stand? So make sure you get out your different color pen or brightly colored pen. Red is ideal, but any color is great. And take notes in the margins. Remember, anything I write, you write. Quick note, this is sample data from another class, not yours. So the actual numbers themselves will not be the same, but the overall process will be the same. So anything I write in red will still apply to your specific class. Okay, so here's our class data from a different class. And number 2 asks, what is the median height? Describe how you found it. We did this last class. So what we did was we cut our sample size in half, n over 2, and then we count to that value, as long as the data is in order, which in this dot plot it is. So when we cut 27 in half, we got 13.5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.5 will be 14th, the 14th one. So this was our median, and that's where we got 66 inches from. Next, what is the Q1 and Q3? Describe how you found them. Those are the medians of each half. So I'll just put a little, this separates the data into 2 halves. The 13 values before the median are the first half, and then the 13 values after the median are the second half for this particular data set. So I'm going to do the same thing. There's 13 values in the first half, and so I'm going to cut that value, the first half, in half, and so I get, and then I'll count to that value, count forwards. And then for Q3, we do the exact same thing, but we count from the back. We went over this last class, but this is just some extra info for it. So for this case, if I cut 13 in half, I get 7.5. No, I don't. I get 6.5. And then I will count to the 7th value then. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 puts me at 63. And then I'll do it from the back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 puts me at 69. And so that is how you get your Q1 and Q3. Number 4, we were taking all the values that we just found. Minimum is the lowest number. Maximum is the highest. And we just talked about the other things with the Q1, the Q3, and the median. This is called the 5-number summary. All 5 of those values. It lets you know the location of specific points. And so when we look at this dot plot, we can label all the things, this box plot, we can label all of the things on here. So I'm just going to write, I'm going to box in the word box plot. So we have the minimum, we have Q1, we have the median is a line in the middle of the box, and then Q3 and the max. And then what that does is if we break the value into quarters, with the first quartile, the median, which we can call the second quartile if we want, the third quartile, and the max, then that means that 25% of the data is in each part of this graph. Now, this is a pretty symmetric box plot, but even if this line went from 69 to 78 and was really long, it would still be 25% of the data. So the actual length of each of the sections of the box plot does not have anything to do with the quantity of numbers inside that section. It's always 25% in each part of the box. A couple more, let's move on to number 5. The interquartile range, we did this last class. But now that we're looking at a box plot, hopefully you can see that that represents the length of the box. So the IQR is the length of the box. And if we go back to our percentages, that is the middle 50% of the data. Okay, number 6. We gave you the directions for finding an outlier. This rule called the IQR rule for outliers. And what it does is it uses a visual of the length of the box to determine if anything is an unusually high or unusually low number. So if you think about 1.5 times the IQR, what that means is you take your box length, multiply it by 1.5 times, so extend it halfway out, and then you see if any value is above that length from Q3 or below that length from Q1. I could see from this box plot that there wouldn't be any outliers at all, just because of the way everything is so wide already. But we can use the math. 63 minus 1.5 times 6 is 54. There are no values below 54. 69 plus 1.5 times 6 is 78. There are no values above 78. Remember, these are not the same numbers from your class. Your class may have had outliers. So that is something that could have happened in your class in particular. I also want to add, there's something else called the two standard deviation rule. It's another type of outlier rule. And so that's going to be any value outside 2 standard deviations from the mean is an outlier by this rule. There are 2 outlier rules. We'll be specific about which one we want you to use, and if we're not so specific, then you may use whichever one you want to. So last thing, let's just use notation for this as well. We have way too small when a value is less than the mean, which we use X bar, we learned that symbol last class, minus 2 standard deviations, and it's way too big when a number is above the mean plus 2 standard deviations. So those are the symbols that we use for mean and standard deviation. All right, that's the lesson. Now we're going to fill in the important ideas box. I went over much of it in this debrief. So what I'm going to do is just show it to you. You may pause the video to write it all down. And then you may try to check your understanding. So we already went over this stuff. I do want to add about the percentages. So we're looking at the percent of the data that falls below. And so that's it's called a percentile. We have that definition down here. It's officially at or below a specific value, but that gets a little technical with that with box plots, whether it's at that value or not. So don't worry about that. Just write these percentages down. We have the min is the lowest number, or the max is the highest number, and everything else was explained. Remember that the IQR is resistant because it ignores any potential outliers that are on the high or the low end by looking at only the quartiles. Pause the video, make sure you get all of this down in your important ideas box, and then you may try to check your understanding. After you try to check your understanding, unpause the video and check your work. All right, here is what I wrote for the check your understanding. I am going to actually use my red pen to kind of read through this and explain some parts, just to make sure that you guys have everything you need. Anything that you didn't have that I have needs to be corrected on your paper. This is a huge concept in AP statistics, comparing distributions. And so remember, you need to use compare words, like higher or lower. You need to have context, and you need to address everything in these 4 acronyms. So S for shape, O for outliers, C for center, and V for variability. So what I did that here, and I'm going to underline or check or star all the places that I did. And remember, if you didn't, you need to fix it. So what we have is the distributions of annual household income. You need to have annual household income for context. You have to have context in your statement. So that's where that comes from. Then you need to mention the groups. I need to see, Maine, Mass, Connecticut. You need to mention each group as part of context and the variable. So you need to have all of that. Okay, then I have here skewed right. Those are my shapes, roughly symmetric. And then that's great. We got our shape, S. I'm just going to put an S there. Now, one quick note about the shape for a box plot. I can't tell if it's unimodal or bimodal or anything like that. So we can only say whether it's symmetric or skewed right or left. We can't say any other type of shape. So please only stick to that. Maine has one high outlier around 170,000 and Mass has one around 440,000. Connecticut doesn't have any. So I might want to add that, but that is our O for outlier. Then we have the median annual household income is highest for Mass. That's a compare word, so that's great. And lowest for Maine, love that. And that is going to be our center. Mass has the largest IQR, that's our variability. We have a good compare word there. While Maine and Connecticut are similar, that's a nice compare word, and smaller than Maine. So here we have V for variability, O for outliers, C for center, S for shape, and our context with our compare words, highest, lowest. I think I'm going to just, underline those. Largest, highest, where else? Smaller, similar, all of that. Okay, correct yourself. Let me know if you have questions. Please email your teacher. If you do, you're going to do now your homework, Unit 1, Day 4 homework, and have a great day. Enjoy.